I want you to picture something with me. It's a quiet Wednesday morning in February 2026. You're sitting at your kitchen table, perhaps with a cup of tea cooling beside you, and you've just opened your monthly statement from Medicare. Your eyes scan down to the premium amount, and suddenly you freeze. The number staring back at you isn't the 164.90 you budgeted for. It's 594 dollars, nearly 4 times what you expected. Your heart rate quickens. There must be some mistake, surely. But here's what I need you to understand. For hundreds of thousands of American retirees right now, in this very moment, this isn't a hypothetical scenario, it's their lived reality. And what's truly shocking is that many of them had absolutely no idea it was coming until that envelope arrived. I am on a mission to reach 1,000 subscribers to build a community that is aware of these financial shifts. If that resonates with you, hit subscribe. What I find so profoundly unsettling about this situation is how a rule that's been quietly operating in the background of Medicare for years has suddenly become a financial trap for millions. It's called the Income Related Monthly Adjustment Amount, or IRMAA, and if you've never heard of it, you're not alone. But I can assure you, if your retirement income crosses certain thresholds, IRMAA knows exactly who you are, and it's coming for your wallet with a precision that would make a Swiss watchmaker envious. This isn't just about paying a bit more for healthcare. This is about a fundamental shift in how Medicare operates, transforming it from a universal benefit into an increasingly tiered system where your past income dictates your future healthcare costs in ways that can devastate even the most carefully planned retirement budgets. What I find particularly fascinating and frankly alarming about ERME is its timing mechanism. It's like a financial ghost from your past reaching forward to haunt your present. Here's how it works, and I want you to pay very close attention to this because it catches almost everyone off guard. When Medicare calculates your 2026 premiums and determines whether you owe IRMA surcharges, they don't look at your 2026 income. They don't even look at your 2025 income. No, they reach back to your 2024 tax return. That's right. Your income from 2 years ago determines what you pay today. This 2 year look back period creates what I call a retirement income time bomb. Imagine this scenario, and I've heard versions of this story dozens of times. You retired in 2024. Perhaps you had a very good final year. Maybe you sold some investments to fund your retirement, or you received a substantial bonus, or you cashed out stock options you'd accumulated over decades. Your 2024 income was, let's say, $115,000. You felt comfortable. You'd planned carefully. You knew Medicare premiums would be around $2,000 annually per person. You budgeted accordingly. But then you turn 65 in 2026. You enroll in Medicare, and suddenly, because of that 2024 income you no longer have because you're now retired and living on a fixed pension, you're hit with IRMA surcharges. For a single filer with $115,000 in modified adjusted gross income in 2024, you're placed in the second IRMA bracket. Your Part B premium jumps from 164.90 to 230.80 per month, and your Part D premium adds another 12.90 per month in surcharges. That's an additional $800 per year per person. If you're married, that's $1,600 annually, money you never budgeted for because you didn't realize your past income would haunt your present healthcare costs. This reminds me of a concept from physics called hysteresis. It's when a system's output depends not just on its current state, but on its history. A material that's been stressed retains memory of that stress even after the force is removed. IRMO works exactly the same way. Your income stressed your Medicare premium calculation 2 years ago, and that stress persists, creating costs today, even though the income that caused it has vanished. Let me walk you through the IRMA bracket structure for 2026 because what I've found is that most people approaching Medicare enrollment have absolutely no idea this even exists. The Social Security Administration, which administers IRMA on behalf of Medicare, uses 5 income brackets based on your modified adjusted gross income, or MAGI, from 2 years prior. For individuals filing single tax returns in 2026, here's what you're facing. If your 2024 MAGI was $103,000 or less, you pay the standard Part B premium of $164.90 per month. No surcharges. This is what most people expect. But cross that $103,000 threshold and everything changes. From $103,001 to $129,000, your Part B premium jumps to $230.80, an additional $791.40 per year. From $129,001 to $161,000, it rises to $329.70, an additional $1,977.60 annually. From $161,001 to $193,000, you're paying $428.60 per month. That's $3,164.40 more per year than the standard premium. And if your 2024 income exceeded $500,000, you're hit with the maximum Part B premium of $560.50 per month, which is $4,147.20 more than the base premium annually. What absolutely astonishes me is how these brackets interact with common retirement income events. Say you sold your family home in 2024 because you were downsizing. Even after the capital gains exclusion, you might have $150,000 in MAGI that year. That single transaction, which you did to simplify your life and secure your retirement, now means you're paying an extra $3,164.40 in Medicare premiums 2 years later. For many retirees, that's the difference between a comfortable year and a financially stressful one. Beyond IRMA, there's another pressure building that I believe demands urgent attention. The standard Medicare Part B premium itself has been rising at a rate that consistently outpaces general inflation. In 2020, the standard Part B premium was $144.60 per month. By 2023, it had jumped to $164.90. That's a 14% increase in just 3 years. Preliminary projections for 2026 suggest we could see premiums rise to $175 or even $180 per month. What I find particularly troubling about this trajectory is how it interacts with fixed retirement incomes. Social Security benefits increase annually, but when Medicare premiums rise faster than cost of living adjustments, retirees actually see their net Social Security income decline even as their nominal benefit increases. This is like watching subscription services employ what tech companies call price creep, small annual increases that seem reasonable individually but compound dramatically over a decade. But premiums are only the beginning of your Medicare costs. The Part B deductible for 2026 is projected at $257. Once you've met that deductible, Medicare typically covers 80% of approved costs for doctor visits and outpatient procedures. You're responsible for the remaining 20%. And here's the critical detail that catches so many retirees off guard. Original Medicare has no annual out-of-pocket maximum. Think about that for a moment. If you have a serious health event requiring extensive outpatient care or expensive medical equipment, you could be on the hook for 20% of costs that run into the tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. There is no cap, no safety net. I've heard heartbreaking stories of retirees who believed they were fully covered, only to face $20,000, $30,000 or more in coinsurance bills after a major illness. This is why Medicare supplement plans, or Medigap, exist, but these premiums have been rising even faster than Medicare premiums. A comprehensive Plan G Medigap policy can cost anywhere from $150 to $300 per month, depending on your age and location. Let's do the math on what Medicare actually costs a typical retiree in 2026. Standard Part B premium, $180 per month. Part D prescription drug coverage, $35 per month. Medigap Plan G, $200 per month. That's $415 per month, or $4,180 annually per person before you've received a single dollar of healthcare services. For a married couple, that's nearly $10,000 per year in premiums alone. Now, I want to shift your attention to a development that's been quietly expanding: the spread of prior authorization requirements in Medicare Advantage plans and certain Medicare services themselves. Prior authorization means that before Medicare will cover certain procedures, tests, or medications, your doctor must first obtain approval from the insurance company. In practice, what I've observed is that prior authorization has become a significant barrier to timely care. In late 2023, CMS expanded prior authorization requirements for certain ambulance transports. In 2024, they added requirements for power mobility devices like motorized wheelchairs. In 2025, proposals emerged for certain outpatient procedures and high-cost imaging studies. Each change is presented as cost-saving, but here's what happens in reality. Your doctor orders an MRI because they suspect a serious condition. Your appointment is scheduled for next week, but then you receive a call. Your Medicare Advantage plan requires prior authorization, and the request is still pending. Your appointment is canceled. 2 weeks later, authorization is approved, but now there's no opening for 3 more weeks. What was supposed to be 1 week has become 6. During that time, your condition may worsen, requiring more extensive and expensive treatment later. This reminds me of what software engineers call technical debt. When developers take shortcuts, they create problems that must be fixed later at greater cost. Prior authorization creates medical debt, delayed diagnoses, and worsened conditions that ultimately result in more expensive care. But that cost is borne by you, the patient. What I believe is equally deceptive is how coverage decisions change with minimal public notice. In 2024, Medicare coverage for continuous glucose monitors was restricted to only those beneficiaries using insulin. If you have diabetes but manage it with other medications, you're suddenly on your own for a device that can cost $300 to $500 per month. This change affected hundreds of thousands of diabetic seniors. Medicare has also increasingly required extensive documentation for orthotic devices and braces. What once required a simple prescription now demands detailed notes, photographs, and prior treatment records. If any documentation is missing, your claim is denied. You're left either paying thousands out of pocket or going without the device your doctor recommended. What I find most concerning is the cumulative effect. Each individual change seems minor, but taken together over a retirement, these changes can add up to tens of thousands of dollars in additional costs that no financial planner accounted for. This is what environmentalists call death by a thousand cuts. Not one dramatic change everyone notices, but gradual degradation until the system has fundamentally transformed. I want to address something that affects almost every Medicare beneficiary: the ongoing uncertainty around telehealth coverage. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Medicare dramatically expanded telehealth coverage through emergency waivers. Suddenly, beneficiaries could see their doctors via video or phone for a wide range of conditions. It was transformative, especially for those in rural areas or with mobility challenges. But here's the critical problem. Those were temporary emergency measures. Congress has extended them multiple times, but always short term. As of early 2026, many of these telehealth flexibilities are set to expire, and there's no certainty about what will replace them. Under pandemic waivers, a telehealth visit was covered identically to an in-person visit. But if we return to pre-pandemic rules, suddenly most telehealth services won't be covered at all. For a beneficiary living in a rural area, the nearest specialist might be 100 miles away. Under expanded telehealth, you could consult from home. Without it, you're facing a 200-mile round trip, potentially overnight stays, and lost time. If you need quarterly specialist visits, you're looking at thousands in additional annual costs that have nothing to do with actual medical care. What I find particularly troubling is how this uncertainty makes financial planning for retirement healthcare nearly impossible. You can't budget for costs that might or might not exist, depending on congressional action. This situation reminds me of what economists call regime uncertainty, when businesses can't plan because they don't know what policies government will implement next. Medicare beneficiaries face the same paralysis. What I want you to understand now is how these elements interact and compound. IRMA, surcharges, rising premiums, increasing deductibles, prior authorization delays, coverage cuts, and telehealth uncertainty don't exist in isolation. They layer on top of each other, creating a cumulative burden that can devastate retirement finances. Let me walk you through a realistic scenario. A married couple, both 67, retired in 2024 with combined income of $140,000 that year. They're living on $70,000 annually in retirement, which they believed was comfortable. They budgeted $6,000 yearly for healthcare. In 2026, they're both hit with IRMA surcharges based on that 2024 income. Instead of $164.90 monthly each for Part B, they're paying $329.70. That's an additional $3,955.20 annually. Part D IRMA adds another $798. They need Medigap plans costing $4,800 combined. Part B deductibles total $514. Part D deductibles total $680. That's $10,147.20 in premiums and deductibles alone. But the husband needs a specialized orthotic that Medicare reclassified. After denial and appeal, they pay $20,400 out of pocket. The wife's MRI is delayed by prior authorization for 6 weeks. Her condition worsens, requiring an additional procedure costing $1,200 in coinsurance. Transportation to appointments costs $180. Total healthcare costs $14,527 or 20. They budgeted $6,000. They're $8,527 or 20 over budget. On 70,000 retirement income, that's an additional 12.2% consumed by unanticipated healthcare costs. That money comes from somewhere. Reduced food budgets, no vacation, deferred home maintenance, or faster drawdown of savings. And here's the truly shocking part. This isn't extreme. This is increasingly typical. What I find particularly cruel is that these are people who did everything right. They worked for decades, paid taxes, saved for retirement, and enrolled in Medicare as instructed. Yet through complex rules, rising costs, and coverage restrictions, they're struggling financially in what should be their golden years. So why is this moment urgent? Let me be clear about the converging factors that make this year particularly dangerous for Medicare beneficiaries. First, we're in the 2-year IRMA look-back window. If you had a high-income year in 2024 from a home sale, inheritance, or final work year, you're feeling the full impact now in your 20 to 26 premiums. For many, the shock is arriving right now. Second, telehealth waivers are under active congressional debate in early 2026. Decisions made in coming months will determine whether millions retain access to convenient, cost-effective care or are forced back into a more expensive, less accessible model. Third, CMS typically announces significant coverage and policy changes in fall for the following year. Right now, the rules governing your 2027 Medicare costs are being finalized behind closed doors. By the time they're public, it's too late to influence them. Fourth, if you're approaching Medicare eligibility, the enrollment decisions you make in 2026 will have lasting consequences. The choices between original Medicare with Medigap versus Medicare Advantage, your Part D plan, and understanding IRMA will impact your finances for decades. Let me be direct about concrete steps you need to take immediately to protect yourself. First, examine your 2024 tax return right now. Calculate your modified adjusted gross income. If it exceeded $103,000 single or $206,000 jointly, you will face IRMA surcharges in 2026. Factor these into your budget immediately. Second, if you had a high income event in 2024, but your income has since dropped significantly, you retired, became widowed, or had substantial income reduction, file an IRMA reconsideration request with Social Security using Form SSA 44. You must document the life-changing event. This can potentially reduce or eliminate IRMA surcharges, but requires proactive action. Third, if approaching Medicare eligibility, review income projections for the 2 years before you turn 65. If planning large income events, selling property, IRA conversions, substantial distributions, understand these will trigger IRMA-A surcharges 2 years later. Time these strategically or spread across multiple years to avoid crossing thresholds. Fourth, comprehensively review your current Medicare coverage. If you have original Medicare without Medigap, you're exposed to unlimited out-of-pocket costs. Seriously consider enrolling in Medigap despite additional premiums. If you're in Medicare Advantage, carefully review prior authorization requirements and network restrictions. Fifth, create a realistic healthcare budget accounting for all potential costs: premiums, deductibles, coinsurance, co-payments, transportation, and uncovered services. Most retirees dramatically underestimate actual healthcare costs. Studies show the average retired couple will spend over $300,000 on healthcare throughout retirement. Finally, consider consulting a Medicare specialist or independent insurance broker. The cost of professional guidance is often far less than the cost of uninformed decisions. Look for fee-only advisors who don't earn commissions. Ensuring advice is truly in your best interest. What I want to leave you with is understanding what's actually happening to Medicare. The promise, when established in 1965, was revolutionary: guaranteed, affordable health care for all Americans 65 and older. For decades, that promise largely held. But what we're witnessing in 2026 is fundamental transformation. Medicare is becoming increasingly means-tested through IRMA, more restrictive through prior authorization and coverage limitations, more expensive through premium increases outpacing inflation, and more uncertain through temporary waivers and frequent policy changes. This isn't conspiracy. It's the predictable result of demographic pressures: more beneficiaries living longer, combined with rising healthcare costs and political unwillingness to adequately fund the program through taxation. The gap is being filled by shifting costs onto beneficiaries, especially those with resources to pay. The shocking truth is that Medicare could cost you thousands more than anticipated, not through any single dramatic change, but through accumulation of IRMA surcharges, steadily rising premiums, expanding prior authorization, subtle coverage cuts, and uncertainty of temporary waivers never made permanent. For millions of retirees, financially secure golden years are being quietly eroded by healthcare costs consuming ever larger shares of fixed incomes. The system that was supposed to protect them has become another source of financial stress. Understanding these realities, as painful as it may be, is the first step toward protecting yourself and making informed decisions about healthcare and finances in retirement. Your retirement security may depend on it.